The roar of engines engulfed me as I crouched low in the cockpit of my sleek Vortex 7, fingers trembling over the controls. The shared adrenaline buzz of the crowd outside reverberated through the metal frame, but I forced myself to silence it. This wasn't just another race, it was a spectacle. The stakes reverberated with every rev and thrum, amplifying what was already a tension thick enough to slice through steel. "Can you believe the odds?" Malik's voice crackled through the comms, tinged with a desperate mix of excitement and dread. "You're sitting at a solid 30-1. You win this, you'll wipe out your debt." I cut him off. "I don't need luck, I need finesse," I snapped, my gaze locked on the illuminated countdown timer before me. Clenching my jaw, I resettled my grip on the yoke, its familiar grooves grounding me. This wasn't about freedom from credits or adrenalizing moments. This was about proving I was more than a discarded collateral for alien debtors, more than just a name on a holoscreen ticking towards zero. The Enchantress, my main competitor, flashed a brilliant cascade of fluorescent blue and crimson decals that momentarily caught my eye, an enticing illusion of speed that reminded me of my brother Theo. Unreliable charm that won. I could almost hear him laughing, urging me to make this the race of a lifetime. "It's just for fun, Jin. Show them what you're made of," he would have said if he were still here, but Theo was dead, swallowed by the last interstellar race 9 moons ago, a victim of the Syndicate's ruthlessness. I inhaled sharply. I needed to push away that haunting reminder, the pain curling tight in my chest. There was only one way to drown it: walk away with a victory today. 3 tones chimed, the noise of the arena growing quieter, anticipation swelling until it nearly drowned out my own heartbeat. And then the signal blared, shattering the silence, and we shot forward. The rush of wind slapped against my face, disrupting any lingering thoughts. My engine screamed as we blasted through the start line, racing against 15 other pilots, each racing for their own endgame. I leaned into the turns, memories of past mistakes flooding my brain, the grip of my fingers betraying me last time. My world felt dizzyingly alive, the holographic projections spiraling through the air, populating the atmosphere with vibrant advertisements and live feed. They sold out the race even before the first engine rumbled. In the first few seconds, I found my rhythm, muscles synchronizing with wires, my body a conduit for the machine beneath me. I could feel the subtle flickers of interruptions in the air around me, the sensors in my suit igniting with warnings alerting me to the triad of ships hovering dangerously close. In a race like this, proximity sensors were seldom wrong. 2 points on your left," Malik said, and I sighed. Died the display, watching the speedometers of my rival's speed past. I instinctively cranked the throttle, propelling my ship into a momentary stall. It worked, leaving one pilot to swerve uncontrollably. "Good call, but don't get cocky," he chided. "Focus. You need to hold the outside track. The outside track." It was a death sentence waiting for another pilot to corner too sharply. But that was where the magic lay. Using the momentum of their mistakes, I dove into the ace position, my Vortex 7 dancing through the flickering holographs of my previous life. There, just ahead, the hazy outlines of the Chiron Belt beckoned. A swirling mass of treacherous asteroids formed during the Great Dispersion, were remnants of a once thriving world now lay fragmented and sharp. "Rough terrain ahead, Jin. Stay frosty." "You know, the Syndicate collects points for the most dramatic races," Malik continued. There was something about his tone, a tense undertone that lingered like an omen hanging just out of sight. I shrugged it off. I needed my focus. The asteroids loomed nearer, and I risked a glance back. The Enchantress was close, practically breathing down my air filter. I could see her pilot's intent behind the glass shield. A determined gaze locked on me. She was the last thing standing between me and a shot at redemption, and I couldn't allow the visage of my brother haunting me to pull my attention away. With a final twist and some luck, that ever-elusive element, I maneuvered into the belt's narrowest stretch, squeezing every ounce of speed. The holographic dynamic indicated a risk warning, but I punched through, bulleted tighter than a bone. We slalomed through the rocks, weaving dangerously amid their jagged edges. Disorientation hit as a sudden gravimetric surge erupted at my six. "Feel that," Malik shouted, voice tinged with panic. The enchantress triggered the gravity shift. I clenched my teeth as the gravitational pull shifted in an unpredictable wave. My Vortex 7 felt alive more than metal, more than wires, an extension of my body amid the chaos. I spiraled, heart racing faster than my ship, adrenaline overwhelming my senses as I tried to level it out. It was a fine line between ruin and triumph, a variance that, if miscalculated, would take everything. Just then, a searing collision rippled through the cockpit. I couldn't see the impact, but the shockwave sent a visceral tremor through the vessel. Alarms shrieked through my comms, screens flashing madly with warnings. "Jin, pull up," Malik gasped, and I barely had time to react before the cockpit shuddered violently. The Enchantress was obliterated, her ship blown apart, carried into the void after colliding with the debris I had avoided. The crowd gasped, and a moment of disbelief danced around me as I swerved instinctively. The physicality of the occurrences gripping my heart as adrenaline surged through my veins. But in that moment of horror came an unmistakable realization. In this fatal spiral, I was now leading the race, but at what cost? I recentered, unwilling to linger on the dreadful absence of the Empire's presence. The syndicates had painted this event as a game, yet it demanded blood, sacrifice, and servitude. Today, I stood on the brink of proving my worth as a pilot, but at the risk of losing everything once again. As I flung into the blind bend, anticipating the serpentine path ahead, the holographic backdrop of yesterday hung heavily in the air. I grasped on, clinging to the fragile hope that this, the last race humanity would ever lose, could somehow lead to my redemption amidst the wreckage of shattered dreams. As the wreckage of the Enchantress faded behind me, I surged ahead, fighting the small voice in my head that whispered caution. The bitter tang of metal and the acrid smell of smoke invaded the cockpit, but all I could think of was the finish line, stretching gleaming and bright in the distance. Familiar landmarks once again lined the brutal course ahead, the crystalline spires rising above the Chiron belt, remnants of the once thriving province before the Great Dispersion, a monument to what history had lost to corporations obsessed with power. "Jin, you're in the lead." Malik's voice crackled through the haze, mingled with deeper, more ominous undertones. "But we have intel that the syndicates have been scrambling their radar feeds. You need to anticipate ahead." I steeled myself, squaring my shoulders against awareness. Racing was about reflex, precision, and calculation. Every second counted. I had already navigated the chaotic rocks ahead, but now the horizon blurred with an unnatural haze. Something wasn't right. "I can't handle this much tension," I shot back, redirecting my focus to the center console, the pulsing holographic display reflecting my racing pulse. "Just tell me how far away the next competitor is." 2 clicks. Malik's voice became taut as a drawn bow. "I think they pulled a fast one on us. The syndicates have another racer ready to push through." I bit my lip, glancing again at my screens before sending a thrust forward, the tiresome ache in my limbs a mere reminder that I had to outlast this. The Vortex 7 roared in agreement, the familiar humwash filling me with confidence. I'd never been one to back away from a fight. Just as the final curve loomed, a flash erupted to my right. A window-shattering sonic boom broke the silence. Searing flames blossomed as another ship tumbled uncontrollably, disintegrating in a fiery spiral that momentarily muted the crowd's roar into solemn awe. It was then that I didn't just hear Malik. I felt his voice, stark against the fragility of life. "Everyone's pushing the boundaries. It's getting too dangerous. We must find a way to escape." I swallowed hard, grappling with my own pulse. No doubt about it. The syndicates were playing a game far beyond just racing. They were looking for blood, looking to eliminate anyone who stood in their way. "We can't just escape without a plan," I countered, voice steady, reloading my determination. "We're here for a reason." Ahead, I glimpsed a flash of gold flicker on my screens. The final competitor, A ghostly figure known only as the Wraith materialized from the debris. Control from the Syndicate's stealth technology shielded them. Rumors whispered through the underground circuitry about their origins. An ex-pilot turned instrument of chaos, rumored to revel in obliterating their rivals. My gut tightened as I studied the intricate design of their glimmering craft. The lines graceful but predatory. Don't let fear cloud your mind. Remember what you trained for. Anticipate every move. Malik shouted through the concealed tension. I nodded, the rest of the world blurring into unfocused fragments as I focused on the Wraith's craft. The final turn approached, and, for the first time, I felt a sliver of doubt creeping through my resolve. I had faced others in the circuit before, but this was different. This was an entity and a representation of the Syndicates at their worst. My brother's face flickered through my mind, the dangers Theo faced every time he clashed with the system. The reminder stirred my spirit to fight against being an echo of the past. Steeling my resolve, I slipped my ship into a narrow corridor between two towering asteroid formations, fueling my momentum as I pulled further ahead. As the curve sharpened, the presence of the Wraith loomed closer, and I could practically feel their presence breathing down my neck. A thin layer of sweat made my grip on the yoke slippery, but I leaned into the machine harder, pushing not just with my body but my will. Just then, as if plucked from the jaws of fate, a blinding ray of data flickered across the control panel. The Syndicate's feeds were revamping. Malik, I cried, heart racing. The comms, tap into the Syndicate's encryption. We can't let them claim any more lives. I'm on it. Malik's voice was unyielding, and I could hear the clatter of keys even through the comms. The pixels on my screen oscillated as if alive, revealing patterns that wove an intricate tapestry of lies and truths. Lines of communication were forming. The Wraith surged forward like a shadow, their ship maneuvering expertly among the ruins. A predator poised behind the last bit of hopeful light that glowed from my own vessel. Analyzing controls, Malik muttered through a dynamic buzz. It's almost like they're anticipating our movements. If I can redirect the heat sensors, just do it, I urged, leaning hard against the yoke to maintain stability. The Wraith pressed the attack, swooping close, but I pivoted right, narrowly missing collision as they attempted to push me back. My display flashed bright red, sensors screaming warnings of impending doom. Incoming strike, Malik shouted as hazy images surged towards us like incoming storms. I responded frantically and with instinct, jettisoning a countermeasure in the nick of time. The bright burst collided with the Wraith, lighting up the cockpit with ominous brightness. I felt the present crackle harshly, the air around me thick with tension, heart racing faster than my engines. Jin, keep pushing. Malik shouted over a cacophony of alarms as the darkness around us thickened. My instincts kicked in again as pieces of swirling debris spun in our wake, littered fragments exploding like firecrackers. Who do you want to be? The question struck like a knife through my thoughts. My brother's words rung clear over the chaos of my reality, mingling with deep, set memories of laughter and ambition. Do you want to carry their debt or be free? The Wraith swung around, but this time I avoided their tempestuous energy by careening further towards the crumbling remains of an old orbital pathway above the course. I had no time for lingering regret or fear. This was my race, and it was going to end with a push for something bigger than I had ever known. The final stretch of the race unraveled before my eyes. The holographic finish line glowed vivid green, tantalizingly close yet still so far away. Malik's voice surged back, almost there, just give it everything you have. With one final surge, I pulled on the throttle, blasting forward on borrowed time and luck. One final burst of strength giving way beneath me. The energy sizzled through the craft, battling against the remnants of fear and doubt. My heart pounded louder than the thrumming engines, thrumming with a newfound understanding. This wasn't just a race for survival. It was the beginning of a fight that would last far longer than the track. Through the chaos, I initiated the final maneuver. A sharp, treacherous turn. The Wraith struggled behind me, attempting to bridge the gap, But I wasn't just fighting against their ruthless ambition. I was fighting for freedom, for my brother's lost dreams, and for every soul crushed beneath the heel of syndicates. Time seemed to bend, and as I crossed the finish line, the crowd erupted in a deafening roar. It was louder than the engines and the chaos, ringing powerfully in my ears as disbelief bloomed brightly. But there was little time for victory before the ominous streak of a dark shadow fell over the arena. The syndicates were barely concealed, their operatives cloaked in dark veils, watching, analyzing with inscrutable intent. With my heart racing, the gravity of this newfound victory dawned upon me. There was no such thing as freedom without resistance. I had just made a target of myself, and as the roaring crowd began to whisper behind me, the questions emerged. What now? What would the syndicates do in response? With the finality of the race echoing through my mind, I realized I was no longer just Jin, the promising pilot on the edge of redemption. I was now a player, one calculated move away from igniting a war that would challenge everything I believed in. The victory was only the beginning, and I felt the energy of tomorrow crackling between my fingertips, alive with the promise of rebellion. "Well, buckle in, Malik," I whispered under my breath as I scanned the crowd for allies lurking out of sight. "I'm just getting started." The buzz of the crowd reverberated in my ears like a distant storm, its chaotic energy mingling with the memories of the race just concluded. I was now a resounding name in Sky, survivor and victor. But as the applause thundered behind me, I felt mere embers of triumph swirling darkly in my gut. I have won, but at what cost? I unbuckled my harness and blinked against the dazzling lights arrayed before me like a disorienting hallucination. The podium loomed ahead, surrounded by a cloud of reporters, corporate sponsors vying for a fleeting moment of my time, and syndicate agents hidden in plain sight. The victory didn't feel like liberation. It felt like the beginning of something darker. Malik's voice crackled through my comms, a lifeline amidst the heady chaos. "Jin, we need to turn the narrative," he advised, urgency intensifying his tone. "This is a perfect opportunity to expose the syndicates. You know, they've been rigging the races all along while keeping the biggest players behind the curtain." I stiffened, memories of the Wraith swirling through my mind, the thief of honor, the twisted face of chaos. But how do we turn a victory into resistance? I whispered back, scanning for familiar faces amid the media frenzy. A figure caught my eye, tall, cloaked in shadows, exuding an air of confidence even under the harsh arena lights. Theo. I could hardly breathe as I caught a glimpse of his familiar silhouette. I wanted to run to him, but the memory of the last time I'd seen him twisted my heart. He'd been my guidance in racing, my closest ally. The loss had left an unfillable void. That's not him. I chastised myself internally. It couldn't be. This blurred mirage was the byproduct of adrenaline and trauma, conjured up from the fragile ether of my grief. Still, curiosity tugged at me, compelling me to move. Cautiously, I moved among the thrumming press, maneuvering toward the figure shrouded in mystery. My heart raced, fueled by the urge to find out why the remnants of my past were beckoning me so strongly, until I was abruptly halted by a wave of reporters and cameras, pouring forth their questions like a soured torrent. "What are your thoughts on the fatalities in the race?" One shouted. "Do you believe you will face repercussions for your sudden success?" Another jeered. Steeling myself, I raised my chin, attempting to channel the courage I'd wielded on the track. This victory symbolizes more than personal achievement. It's a statement against the syndicates and their reckless gamble on lives. The truth must prevail, and I will not back down in the fight. The moment felt electrifying, resonating beyond the words spoken. Glimmers of hope sparked around the arena, inspiring those who reveled in the undercurrent of rebellion pulsing beneath their illusory lives. Just then, the murmurs punctured the atmosphere with snarled whispers of discontent. The syndicates had underestimated the power of rebellion. The crowd was hungry for change. "Your words may ignite a fire, young pilot," came a voice from the shadows. The man from before. It was husky, intense, resonating with an energy that drew me closer to him. But flames often consume the entities that spark them. Who are you? I confronted him, wariness blending with intrigue. Theo's visage lingered in the back of my mind, a reminder of how one duality transformed into another, twisting identity and purpose into complex shades of gray. Consider me an ally, the man said, his eyes glinting in the light. I've been watching you, Jin Sky. You're not just a pilot, you're a catalyst. The syndicates, they're poised to suppress any threatening wave, especially one ignited by your victory. Pushing against the current isn't just speculation. They'll come for you. I raised an eyebrow, irritating bristling against my skin. And you, I persisted. Why should I trust you? He chuckled softly, maniacally. You shouldn't, but you will. All that matters is how this dynamic unfolds. Before I could pursue my question further, he disappeared back into the crowd, swallowed by shadows and media. A sudden commotion erupted as the syndicate enforcers surged onto the stage, their black armor gleaming ominously that choked the cheers in the air. The atmosphere thickened as they separated the waves of reporters, forcing them to back away, their masks betraying neither emotion nor intent. This is an unauthorized gathering, one of the enforcers announced, their voice steady and emotionless. We advise you to disperse at once. The syndicate does not tolerate defiance. Yet that moment, realization dawned upon me. They'd come to quell the burgeoning rebellion simmering among the people, the same rebellion I had just unleashed with my words. The thought grounded me, igniting a fire within my spirit. Jin, Malik's voice jolted me back as I turned my focus toward him on the comms. The syndicates are escalating. They've taken note of your statements and they want to silence you. We need to leave, now. But there's something more I need to do first. I felt a confidence stir within me, a resurgence of Theo's spirit combined with my own. For once, there wasn't just survival ahead. If I can't bring this kind of unrest into the open, then what was the point of winning? I maneuvered through the remnants of the press corps, shrugging off the enforcers as if they were nothing more than a bad memory. I can't just fade into the shadows. Malik's reply was heavy with concern. Each hour you remain in sight is a liability. They want you silenced, the consequences are real. They may want to silence me, but I refuse to let that happen, I insisted. If I'm to lead, I'll need the world to see the syndicate for what they are. Monsters lurking within corporate facades. As the enforcers encroached deeper, unconsciously drawing closer, I straightened my shoulders resolute. Standing tall in front of them, I lifted my chin defiantly. No, you don't get to dictate the narrative. We've lost enough lives today. No more silence, no more obedience. The syndicates will come for our voices, but this time we won't bow. The momentum of my declaration rippled through the crowd, and in that moment, something shifted. A wave of solidarity surged forth, igniting the crowd into a clamor of agreement, bravery aligning against fear. I felt my heart crash against my ribcage as this new energy thrummed around me, sparking opinions, whispers, protests overshadowing the enforcers' cold presence. The syndicates would never withstand the united front of an awakened populace. The enforcers stepped closer, and with them crept a heavy sense of dread. But I couldn't relent. It was only the beginning. If you close your eyes, you'll no longer hear the sound of oppression. I took a deep breath, steadying myself as tension ran razor, sharp through the air. But open your eyes and see. The truth stands at the edge of destruction. Armed with the fire coursing through my veins, I pressed onward, defiance bleeding color into my conviction. It wouldn't be an easy fight. It would never be. But it was a war fueled with purpose, and one I intended to lead to liberation. Back away, one of the enforcers bellowed. I steadied my breath, eyes narrowing as the crowd closed ranks behind me. A soft crescendo of unity pressing toward the syndicate's shields. I was no longer just racing for personal triumph. We were rising as a people taking a stand against our oppressors. You may think you can silence our voices, but we will be heard. I yelled, and with every utterance, I flung my hand forward, igniting a signal flare hidden in my suit pocket. It tumbled from my hand, flaring bright against the crowd's raging momentum, a beacon piercing through the shadows, seeking further truths among the tangled stories concealed beneath veils of secrecy. With a collective roar, the crowd mimicked my resolve, determined to uproot the darkness that cloaked their existence. "We are done with silence," someone shouted from the back, their voice strong and steady, spurring the kind of vitality that resonated like a heartbeat through the masses. That voice was a spark inviting kindling to the flame. It was raw and true, bodying a kind of unity I had yearned for as a child racing in my brother's shadow. Freedom isn't just a dream, it's our reality. As the enforcers wavered, uncertainty seeping through their frames, I stepped forward, the tide of humanity rallying behind me. The darkness that threatened to overwhelm was now merely a backdrop where hope soared, whispering promises of rebellion on the cusp of exploding outward from the wounds society had borne. "A new narrative begins here, and we won't quiet it," I declared, standing tall as the crowd began to chant, voices rising in one beautiful defiance, the beginning of the end of fear. The syndicates would no longer hold power over the people. As the embers of revolution crackled to life, I felt Theo beside me, his spirit refusing to rest unnoticed. Together, we would find the truth and liberate humanity from the clutches of oppression. The race for freedom had just begun. As the chant of defiance surged from the crowd, it washed over me like a tidal wave, my heart vibrating with their collective resolve. Banners waved, arms lifted high, as humanity coalesced into a force that threatened to challenge the syndicate's iron grip. The sentiment, a tide of empowerment, filled the air, and the oppressive weight of fear began to dissolve, evaporating into the charged atmosphere. "Jin, this momentum could turn into a wildfire." Malik's voice crackled in my helmet, barely audible over the mounting chaos. "But the syndicates won't just stand by and allow this to happen. You need to prepare everyone for the backlash." I nodded, even if he could not see it. "You're right. If we're to create any meaningful change, we must fortify our resolve and establish a plan." Drawing a deep breath, I stepped closer toward the podium where media cameras still flickered, capturing every charged moment of revolution. Ignoring the enforcers closing in on us, I steadied my voice and called out, "This is a beginning, but beginnings are often met with resistance. We need to unite beyond today." The fervent voices of the crowd cascaded around me, fueling my confidence. "We'll establish safe houses, places where people can come together to organize, put a plan into action. We'll form a network that the syndicates cannot sever." My words ricocheted around me, resonating with the people standing shoulder to shoulder, their faces a medley of hope and defiance. I could almost feel them pulling together like strands of a tapestry weaving a new future. Malik's voice flickered over the comms again, urgency lacing his tone. "Pick your allies wisely, Jin. The city of echoes is riddled with agents of chaos. They will infiltrate our ranks if we don't stay vigilant." "Understood," I replied, scanning the crowd for familiar faces that could lend strength to our movement. Eager hands reached out toward me. My gaze flitted to the shadowy figure I had seen earlier, now resurfacing amid the throngs of people. The man was drawing nearer, intent etched on his face. As the enforcers began to move more decisively, the palpable tension in the air intensified. "Who are you?" I demanded, stepping away from the podium, bringing my focus solely to him. "I'm more than whom you think," he replied, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. "I'm here to show you how to dismantle the deceptive ecosystem of the syndicates if you're willing to take the plunge." Intrigued, I narrowed my eyes. "What do you want from me?" "A partnership," he stated simply. "The syndicates aren't just going to lay down their power. They have resources, operatives, spies. They've been into this game longer than even you knew. Together, we can expose their secrets." The heartbeat of the crowd ebbed and flowed, anticipation hanging like a fragile thread ready to snap. The enforcers inched closer, but I would not show fear. "Why should I trust you? You come with shadows. If deception breeds deception, Jin. Wear the mask while you can. Many wear masks in this city, some out of loyalty, others out of survival. I am one of those shadows." He leaned in slightly, his voice low, But I'm also someone who can help you win this. We will have no secrets, only transparency and authenticity, I declared, resolute. We cannot waste time. You will earn our trust through actions, not words. The man's lips twitched faintly, perhaps with amusement. Very well. Meet me tomorrow then. And just as mysteriously as he approached, he slipped back into the crowd, vanishing among the fractured unity. The enforcers had nearly reached the stage, their steady approach unwavering. I turned to see them signaling to their comrades, a sight that sent a shiver up my spine. Malik, we need to ready our people for potential conflict, I said, urgency rising in my chest, the foreboding growl of resistance looming around us. Prepare the exits. Mobilize the crowd as quickly as you can. On it, Jin. I'll filter through the crowd, form an escape route out of here. I felt our connection rekindled, the pulse of our alliance guiding me, lending strength in the face of looming danger. Instinctively, I stepped forward, beckoning to the people nearby, eyes darting through the sea of familiar faces. Everyone, our stand begins with unity. But remember, the shield of deception is thick. Gather your courage and prepare to make way. The rumbling agreement grew, and as the voice of the masses strengthened, I became aware of further tension spiraling closer. ***, the enforcers advanced like phantoms, harbingers of oppression drawing nearer. ***, the crowd flared fervor, and divisions between allies and foes felt thick in the air, an unseen line waiting to break. This isn't just about survival. It's about fighting back against everything that has been taken from us. I shouted to all those around me, tossing a glance at the syndicate officers, whose goal was painfully evident. They sought to quell this spark before it engulfed the city. As if bolstered by a sudden momentum, the crowd surged forward instinctively, looming dangers igniting anger and determination. "You dare challenge authority," one of the enforcers called out, their voice a thunderous roar that demanded silence. "We are the law, stand back and you will be spared. Lies and manipulation won't save you from the reckoning," I countered, raising my voice higher, uncaring for what retaliation may come. "You can war against us, but the truth is unyielding. Shackle us, imprison us, but our voices will not be muted. Decay the structures built on death." The crowd rallied, their vigor swelling in response to the authenticity of our shared beliefs. Together, we roared an unassailable wave of resistance. The syndicates had taken too much from us. It was time they felt the brunt of their own creation. Just then, the enforcers shifted from caution to aggression. As they stepped forward, a volley of sound burst forth, clanking armor, police batons cracking against shields, the air filled with the lightning of tension and chaos. But we weren't about to back down. Push forward, don't yield, don't let them break this bond. I called out, prompting the crowd to surge forth with solidarity, the sheer mass inciting determination. Individuals pushed against the barricade forming between us and the enforcers, and soon the echoes of solidarity drowned the bitter shouts of authority. My pulse quickened, the adrenaline coiling around my muscles as the confrontation escalated. I could feel the heat of our collective spirit blistering against the coldness of oppression. I had been afraid that I would carry the weight of yesterday's loss into my future endeavors. But as I shouted alongside my allies, I felt the past slipping through my fingers, slowly replaced by the burgeoning realization of my purpose. No more silence. We're not going back. Stand strong, I yelled, addressing everyone. Remember why we rise. This chance is ours to seize, and we will not suffer alone. The force of our united voices echoed against the barricades of enforcers. I could see that they hesitated, perhaps caught off guard by the fervor of our numbers. But silence was never an option, not for us. I pushed forward, right into the line of authority, courage taking the place of fear. A surge of solidarity ignited. We were more than mere combatants uniting against privilege. We were the given a voice, a human chain overriding the darkness of oppression. And as I stepped and shouted louder, clearer, I could feel the remnants of my brother's spirit igniting the bond. A new flaring of hope rising from ashes shadowed by despair. I pulled on every strength within me, every memory of my lost home, and what I saw mirrored back was the potential for rebirth from the carnage of the past. The enforcers advanced, weapons raised, but the collective body of the brave pushed alongside me, igniting the driving force toward rebellion. There would be no retreat, no surrender. Asterisk, our voices were now one, and together we would stand unshakable as the tides of oppression attempted to advance. Asterisk, I glanced at Malik behind me, his face a portrait of determination, our eyes locking for a brief, fierce moment before erupting back toward the foreboding line of force. The connection we had formed, the plans we dreamed of, all surged to the forefront, curling together in a perfect crescendo. This fight may get ugly. We'll need every soldier, Malik called, moving beside me with urgency as he engaged others in building barricades. Prepare to shield our allies. It's time to show them the consequences of their avarice. I shrieked, raising my hands high in rallying fervor. From this day forward, our fight begins anew. Asterisk, never had I felt more alive. Asterisk, with determination crystallizing into focus, we barreled forward through the shielded barricade. Aided by adrenaline and the power of belief, we were warriors igniting a revolution, in waiting. Amidst crackling and rumbling, as our battle began, I knew deep down that this was our moment. A break into the chaos, and perhaps even a moment my brother, lost yet everlasting, would approve of. We were no longer shadows of doubt. We were flames of conviction, poised to incinerate the shackles of authority. But as our rebellion burned brightly, I couldn't shake the shadow of reality that loomed, a pledge I had unwittingly made to the shadows, a partnership that demanded far more than I could foresee. All I could do was hold on to that promise of change. The first strike would ignite a chain reaction, and it was only the start of the great unraveling. Asterisk, the syndicate's grip had begun to slip, and in that moment, I dared to believe we could rise anew. Asterisk, end of part 4, as the dust settles and tensions mount. The fires of rebellion ignite. Deserting the shadows of the past for a hopeful future proves both perilous and empowering. The syndicate stands at the precipice of collapsing authority, while jinns gamble for freedom amid uncertainty looms. The resolve to unite against oppression holds the fate of a world aspiring to be reborn. But to win, sacrifices must be made, and loyalties thoroughly examined when every ally becomes suspect. What price freedom? Upon the horizon shimmer possibilities, but danger lurks, and in the labyrinthine weight of ambition, Jin must decide if true freedom is worth the cost. The chaos erupted like a symphony of disarray, the pounding of my heart sinking with the staccato bursts of energy clashing against the gathered throng. The enforcers, clad in their armor, loomed before us, symbols of oppression and authority set against a tide of justice and rebellion, and the atmosphere crackled with palpable tension as we confronted one another. I raised my chin, every fiber of my being vibrating with defiance as the crowd surged behind me, human waves ready to withstand the impending storm. Prepare yourselves, I called out, voice steady despite the war raging within me. This is our moment. We've stood silent long enough. The enforcers advanced, moving like a tidal wave intent on quelling the spark of our revolution. It felt like time had slowed as my body molded into the collective persistence of the crowd. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone standing united against a greater evil. Malik emerged at my side, sweat glistening on his brow. "Are you ready?" he asked, sincere determination radiating from him like a beacon. This could end badly. Or it could be the birth of our future, I countered, matching his intensity with resolve. People can't remain shackled in fear. Today, they shatter that fear and break free. Suddenly, the enforcers charged with brutal efficiency, a wall of shields locking together as they echoed their orders. Stand down, disperse or face consequences. Their words fell flat against our pulsating energy. Each shout from the crowd amplified our collective strength, a clarion call echoing against the palpable uncertainty. I pushed forward, fists balled, feeling the pulse of camaraderie bleed through the surging surge like fire spreading through the dry underbrush. Shields, Malik shouted over the melee, a chorus of voices ringing behind him. Together, we assumed our places along the front line, binding ourselves in solidarity. Batons clashed against shields, and my breath quickened as the enforcers engaged in a futile attempt at dominance. In that moment, we were not merely rebels. We were guardians of the voice of despair birthed anew from the ashes of oppression. With a clamor of fury and determination, the first wave of crowd surged forward, crashing against the enforcers with fierce obstinacy. A tide of bodies, fueled by raw emotion, surged forth, moving with the harmony of purpose and rebellion. One enforcer went down, tripped and tossed aside, medics already scattered in the crowd to check for injury. "Keep moving, don't let them isolate you," I bellowed, our unity rising like a crescendo, blending with the heavy atmosphere around us. We were a storm, buffeted by wind and passion, our collective force channeling through every muscle I could summon. I never felt so alive, urgency coursing through my veins as we pushed against the barricade of authority. The shadows behind me danced in the club of exhilaration, memories of Theo's laughter creeping into my mind. His spirit fused with me as we fought not for survival, but for rebirth. "Jin, Malik, over here." The familiar voice pulled me back from my reverie. A group of allies broke through Rain, one of the first to join our push back against the syndicates. Her eyes burned with determination, the kind of fire that would usher in change. Beside her came Asher, a former engineer versed in tech and strategies. "We've got intel. Early warning systems are being triggered. The syndicates have backup lined up." I felt a shiver of dread prickle down my spine. "How long until they arrive?" "We have no more than a few minutes. We have to spread out and fortify this position. We can't let them sever our strength." The urgency ignited a renewed energy, sending ripples of resolve through the crowd. "No one holds dominion over our voice," I announced, ensuring the chaos did not swallow our collective spirit. "We stand together. In chaos, we find our strength." The crowd erupted into raucous agreement, eyes glimmering with rebellion. Together, we spread our ranks without losing our formation, each ally coalescing around a point of action. The barricades we created took shape, bolstered by resolve, united against one common enemy, the syndicates. Suddenly, thundering noises rumbled in the distance. Backup enforcers approached, vehicles screeching to a halt and spewing forth reinforcements, their presence imposing and tumultuous. "Ready yourselves," Rain shouted, fingertips crackling with energy as she prepared us for a confrontation. "We stay steady, prepare for the first wave." My heart pounded as adrenaline surged, my body twitching with anticipation. The enforcers formed a line, slowly advancing, weapons drawn, ready to quell our uprising. "Hold the line," I shouted, voice carrying over the growing din. "We are not mere soldiers, we are the embodiment of the changed future." As I faced the front line, I locked eyes with Malik and the others. We were a congregation of defiance. "And now, everyone, move." And then we moved, a flurry of bodies breaking into an organized chaos. Not just any brawl, but a dance determined by the rhythm of fervent hope and raw fear. The clash of metal resonated in harmonious rebellion, flashes igniting around us as both our shields and our will clashed against the syndicate's oppressive rule. The crowd surged against the enforcers, a wave of unity the syndicates hadn't anticipated, each clash ringing out like an anthem. My thoughts scattered with raps of memories of lost voices pressed against the edges of time. It wasn't just Theo's face I remembered. So many had suffered, so many had been lost. "Stand strong," I bellowed, weaving through the fray, rallying our numbers, feeding off their energy. We stand for those who no longer can. And then, the enforcers, orchestrating their final assault, began to falter. A few retreated in fear, driven back by the roar of our collective rebellion. We were an avalanche, an unstoppable force pushing against the darkness, breaking the illusion of oppression set up around us. The air was thick with a heady mixture of smoke, sweat, and the metallic tang of fight. A taste I wore like armor, my resolve deepening, filling my lungs with every breath of hope I could muster. Just then, a voice sliced through the night, sharp and commanding. Reinforce the line, don't let them breach the barriers. A figure swung into view, leading a small squad of enforcers, eyes glinting with the desire for control. A familiar face I recognized from meetings within the syndicates. General Ira, their notorious enforcer, known for ruthlessness and tactics steeped in cold austerity. My heart sank. We've got to go, hold the line, I shouted to the crowd. The presence of General Ira, an apex predator, was enough to petrify anyone tethered to fear, but I couldn't allow that to alter our course. Everyone, we need to regroup, came Rain's voice. She pressed forward alongside me, her eyes alight with fierce loyalty. We need to dismantle their commands. A heroism ignited within me, against the growls of fear spiraling inwards, searching for solutions. We'll take the blow, but we'll make it count. I watched the general reorganizing their troops, her voice cutting through the battleground, issuing commands while we scrambled into position, dredging through casualties along the front line. We didn't have the luxury of time. Decisions became vital. Our actions lay in the balance. No more hiding, I shouted, addressing every ally around me, feeling the pulse of their existence radiating beside me like a tide of loyalty. This is our chance. Push forward. Then, as if the very winds answered my command, a sudden wave of hope surged from the heart of the crowd. It blasted through the positions we had taken, hands raised toward the shielded enforcers. The strength of our collective voice rang out, drowning the command of authority engulfing around us. The crowd roared, overwhelming General Ira's presence, and as shock registered on their face. It was only a fleeting moment, but it was enough. Asterisk with that opportunity, we surged forward, fighting back against the oppressive tide of syndicate rule, and amid the swirling chaos of our rebellion, I knew we would carve a new way forward. Asterisk as one cohesive unit, we crashed into the enforcers, shields breaking beneath determination and fight, echoes of joy igniting the air as we pushed them back. But not before I felt a sharp pain hiss through my side, blurring the edges of my vision. Ejin, Malik's voice called through the haze, but I pushed forward, adrenaline spurring me only farther as I stumbled back, fists igniting with fervor, knowing our time was now. We wouldn't fall back. This was the moment we had all waited for. A chance to breathe hope into a world silenced too long. Drew on memories of every lost soul, every shadow forgotten. I steeled myself against fear as we roared through our enemies. The tide had turned **. I felt it deep in my bones, and together we would break against the dam of control suffocating us. A victory, in the throes of chaos, I shouted, repelling our fear for liberation. And as we surged onward, I felt the flames of rebellion rise like the sun breaking dawn in a lost world. 5 agonizing minutes blurred into eternity, but amidst the fray, I had found my purpose, our resolve unyielding together. We would seize the future cradled in our hands and ignite the fires of freedom. In that moment, we were not just survivors. We were architects of a new beginning. And we would rise. As the syndicates fell back, I rallied, eyes blazing through the cacophony, daring the darkness that had cast such deep shadows. Move, regroup, fight. But as I gathered the troops, I felt the shadow of doubt crawling deeper, nagging my core. General Ira had not yet given up, and the battle was far from over. There would be repercussions. Yet just as hope reigned supreme, I felt the soft contact. A whisper, a gentle brush against my back as someone maneuvered through the chaos. I turned, hand raised to shield my face from the flurry of unfolding events, and then abruptly halted. Standing there amidst the swirling bodies was that shadow again, where my doubts lingered, again tearing forth the echoes of what I thought lost. Jin, came the voice, soft but unwavering. It's time we enact a plan. Breath caught in my chest as I recognized the familiar tones cradling my heart's long, lost essence, pulling at the strings all too real, resonating with the very essence of revival. Ahu, I gasped, but just as the familiarity emerged and illuminated my doubts, the world around us jolted into darkness. Asterisk, the ground shook with a violent rumble, reverberating through our ranks, leaving chaos in its wake. From the depths of the shadows came an ultimatum, a reminder of the battle that cast light and devastation in equal measure, teetering our hopes perilously over the edge of chaos once more. Asterisk, the syndicates were relentless, and I could sense their presence lurking behind every hope igniting as we pushed to overcome our past. The battle had merely begun, and while the first act may invoke the spirit of rebellion, asterisk, the final act would demand the highest price of all. Asterisk, taking a step backward, instinct urging me to protect those I loved while fighting against the waves closing in. I faced the danger, and I felt my breath steady amidst uncertainty, hoisting the banner of resistance high. In this battleground of division, we would solidify our place and channel everything we had left. The battle for our future had taken root, and we would not be deterred. I would forge onward despite the shadows that encroached. Tonight, we stood on a precipice. The curtain was rising, the battle would unfold, but together we would sow the seeds of change. Asterisk, and with that resolve, we would lay the foundations of a new dawn. Asterisk, chaos reigned around me, the ground vibrating with the force of the syndicate's response. They brought in heavy machinery, mechanized behemoths lumbering into the fray, their colossal forms silhouetted against the fiery backdrop of the city. Each step they took reverberated like a thunderclap across the battlefield. I felt the heat of fear rising within me, a visceral pulse in the pit of my stomach as I caught sight of General Ira leading the charge, her cold stare locking onto me with a fierceness that chilled my bones. "Hold the line," I bellowed, though my own voice sounded thin against the grinding sounds of heavy engines and the distant wail of sirens. Hope surged within me as I sensed the crowd, still a dynamic wave behind me, coalescing with instinctive determination. I glanced at Malik, who was organizing the formation behind us, his face a mix of fear and fierce resolve. The lines had been drawn, the syndicates against us, and I could see clearly the path ahead. "Jin, we need to fall back to the safe zones. They'll break our defenses," Malik called, urgency ringing through his voice as I stood resolute at the forefront. "No," my reply was sharp, laced with desperation. "We have to push forward. This is our moment, Malik. We can't let them stomp out this rebellion." A shadow fell across the ground as the first of the syndicate's mechs raised a massive arm, the glint of armor plating reflecting the shimmers of defiance in the crowd. Fear gripped me, but I couldn't show it. This was not the time to retread ground. That path led only to oppression. "We stand together, banners high. We will not fall." As I shouted, the crowd's resolve strengthened, individuals rallying around my voice, weaving their spirits into a unified tapestry of defiance. We were not merely a group of scattered souls, we were a movement, a tide against the dark. The first blast rang out, exploding against the barricades and tearing through the scattered debris with fervid intensity. The performance engines sputtered, creating a cloud of acrid smoke that billowed like tongues of flame. People surged back, but I pushed forward, eyes locked on the advancing threat. "Regroup, spread out, build the barricades," I shouted, directing the crowd to reinforce our line against the syndicate's approach. I could feel the energy of rebellion thrumming beneath our feet, the resolve binding us like steel interwoven into a massive chain that could not be severed. But my words barely held against the fear resonating nearby. General Ira's steely gaze bore down on me from atop her dominating colossus, which shifted alarmingly close, towering overhead, a clear harbinger of doom. Jin, we have to move." Malik's voice was insistent, pulling at my sleeve, but I swept my gaze toward the horizon. A thought struck me. Before we could act, we needed more than courage. We would need a plan. "Their line is weaker on the right side," I declared, searching the faces around for understanding. I wouldn't let panic drown my purpose. "If we can take out their support vehicles, we'll cripple their force." I caught a flicker of recognition in Malik's eyes as he craned his neck, assessing the risk. "You mean create a diversion, push them from the other front?" "Yes," the words tumbled out, pouring with newfound purpose. "We can draw Ira's forces away from their critical positions. If we can breach their flank, we tackle the heart of their machine. I can create a distraction." "Very risky, Jin," Malik cautioned, though his tone softened with concern. "You'll be exposed." "Trust me," I affirmed, catching the eyes of my allies, who still echoed that hunger for change. "This is our fight. The sparks of rebellion deserve to be fanned, or we risk losing everything." Malik nodded, finally conceding, though his worry remained firmly knitted between his brow. "Okay. Let's prepare to execute this plan, but we need volunteers. I'll scan for those willing to split off. Stay loud, keep the noise alive." I called to the crowd once more, feeling the momentum pulse in their eager faces. "We push with purpose. We defy the syndicates." Amid the shouts that were thrown into the air, several figures stepped forward, Rain in a burst of resolve, Asher standing steely beside her, ready to devise tactics for our operation. The thrumming energy reminded me of the connection we had forged, solidifying into something tangible, something unyielding. The anticipation melted the dread hovering just on the edges of my courage. The barricades quickly transformed into a stronghold, and we gathered makeshift shields, patches of armor cobbled together in desperate unity to fortify our defenses. I felt the adrenaline flood my veins, the spark within me igniting, ready to shine amidst the shadows once more. "On my mark, we move," Malik instructed, his voice carrying authority as he prepared our minds for the mayhem to come. I hopped up onto one of the lower barricades, my heart thundering against my ribs like some wild creature desperate for release. We watched as the syndicate machines closed in, heavy and unnatural, their grinding gears desperately attempting to snuff out our flame. I inhaled sharply, filling my lungs with determination. "And now, follow my lead." At once, we broke ranks and surged forward, fanning into carefully constructed chaos. A plan unfurling before us. I darted to the sidelines, retracing the path I had planned, heart racing as I aimed for the gap between two colossal vehicles before me. Shouts erupted. The disorienting clash of metal echoed through the air amidst the advancing enforcers, each of them completely unaware of the formation we had crafted. There was momentum on our side, an energy of desperation and determination, and I steadied my resolve as I ducked close to the ground, slipping through the shadows towards the enemy flank. A sprinting pulse urged me onward, flames licking at my heels as I caught my first glimpse of the key vehicles. Hovering drones perched atop metallic generators, the core of their power tapping through the conduits. "Asher, Rain, it's now or never," I shouted as my fingers wrapped around the click of a detonator. My heart raced as I squared my stance against the generator, calculating my escape. "Everyone, shift to the east flank. Prepare for explosion." In that moment, with confidence surging through me, I pressed down on the switch, the detonator sparking to life in my hands as I set off the explosive charge, sending the drone skittering through the air like broken glass, scattered from a hurricane. The vibrations rang, shattering the noise of the battlefield in a chaotic befuddlement. In that split second, the ground erupted beneath me, flames curling in a wild dance as the vehicles buckled. "Go! Retreat!" I shouted as the shrapnel exploded, artisans of chaos giving life to our rebellion. The shockwave rattled me, but I surged onward, weaving through the crowd as they rallied, their energy coiling back toward the barricades. Forward, push through. I felt the collective roar of the mob lifting and merging into unison, our voices weaving an anthem against oppression. The syndicate forces staggered, confusion rippling through their ranks, like a splintering mirror reflecting back their mortality. Just as my feet gripped the ground once more, I felt the ground tremble again, but this time it was different. An uncanny vibration, a shift toward us as the remaining syndicate vehicles recalibrated, preparing to retaliate. Overhead, the looming silhouette of General Ira glided closer, determination in every piece of her armor, an anchor against our rising tide. "Regroup now," I shouted, catching sight of Malik as he urged our allies back toward safety. But as we stumbled back to our barricades, a reality crested. General Ira had her sights set squarely on me. "You think you can stand against the syndicates, kid?" Her voice boomed across the battlefield, every word caramelized with disdain. I steeled myself, locking eyes with her through the haze of smoke. "We're not afraid of you. We're never backing down." Suddenly, an impact erupted behind me. A drone had caught up, razor, sharp tendrils reaching to ensnare the scattered, crowded ranks. "The modern machines will not hold us down," I screamed, pushing against the impending peril, adrenaline thickening the air with urgency. "Don't waver, forward." But then a single shot rang out from above, slicing through the air like an unseen blade. A howling force followed. A bright pulse of energy arched toward me, striking ground less than a heartbeat away. The explosion sent me sprawling, the force ripping through the air and burying me in dust. Pain blossomed through me, a violent tug and spin, and I felt the warmth drain, the shadows encroaching as I lay flattened against ash and debris. The outcry of voices crescendoed to muffled chaos, my world spinning as the realization struck deep. I had led our people into the jaws of danger, and now it threatened to claim me. Distant, murky images pulled at my consciousness, cascading as if underwater. I could hear Malik's frantic voice calling for a djinn. But shadows of unconsciousness gripped me, clawing me back into insistent depths. Familiar fragments floated through images of Theo, laughter ringing like celestial bells, as the echoes breathed life into one last moment of resistance. I fought, steadied by the strength of hope, and just as I pushed to reclaim my bearings, I felt the ethereal warmth of connection start to break through the darkness. Tendrils of order began to hum, a wave rising from the wreckage, pulling me back to the fight. The encore of rebellion echoed through the din. "Jinn, we need you," came Malik's call, and I willed myself to rise. Desperation flooded my senses even as pain coiled around my ribs. I looked out from the debris just in time to see Malik rallying the crowd back into formation, determination etched upon his features. "Remember, we stand together. Now is the time. Regroup, regroup." His voice surged, a guiding star that pulled me away from my murkiness. As I regained my footing, I could barely find my breath. Shouts erupted around us, a chorus of unity rising anew as the syndicate's forces regrouped, preparing to push back against our nascent strength. "We push back," I shouted, forcing the pain back, breathing against the fog of desperation. "Do you see them?" Malik said hesitantly, eyeing the enemy. "Ira's readying for the final push." "Let them come," I declared, firming my posture as I raised my voice high above the chaos, rallying our comrades. "This is the fight to reclaim our freedom. Together we will endure." The air glimmered with defiance, and with that, we emerged from the brushes of destruction, a resolute wave of energy swirling to life, fueled by the awakened spirits of every lost voice that had stitched us together. Together we would carry this moment, this fight. It was now or never, to victory. We yelled in unison, soldiers against oppression. And then we charged, a united front, an avalanche of humanity bursting forth against the imposing declaration of tyranny, charged with fervor that would defy every threat hurled our way. For we had discovered the truth nestled in the ashes of loss. The power of one voice could ignite 1,000 journeys toward liberation. Asterisk, the battle was far from over, but it was a fight we would take up until our last breath. With the flames roaring in our hearts, we pushed on toward the dawn of a new age, ready to shatter our chains. Asterisk, the echoes of chaos reverberated around me as I tuned into the realization that the battle was not merely a fight of bodies against drones. It was a clash of ideologies, a test of human spirit aglow against the encroaching darkness of the syndicates. "Push forward, Jin," Malik shouted, pulling me from the depths of the rubble that had encroached upon my senses like a thick fog. "The flank is weak. If we can just create that opening, we can rally our numbers." I clutched my side, pain shooting through me, but the collective fervor rising behind us pulled me upright, chasing away any part of me that feared failure. The crowd had begun to surge with renewed energy, instinctively aligning under the banners of change that had ignited from our shared struggle. "Onward," I yelled, my voice breaking through the disarray, rallying the spirit of the people around me. For every life lost, for every soul consumed by darkness, we pushed through. As the Syndicate's machinery lurched closer, the weight of their mechanical behemoths distorted the air with a foreboding stillness. General Ira stood atop her command platform, cold and unyielding, her gaze scanning our forces with shrewd calculation. "Do not falter," I shouted, weaving through the crowd, desperate to reach Malik. "We stand united against this tyranny." The heat of rebellion crackled like lightning in the air as we fortified our defenses, voices amplified with passion. A chorus of determination. I could feel the momentum swell around me, rippling outward like a wildfire igniting in dry grass. "Jin, right flank." Malik's shout pierced through the sound of heavy machinery, pulling me back into focus. I glanced to my side, where a troop of enforcers steadily advanced, their cold determination glaring through layers of armor. "We need distraction," I yelled back. "Rain, Asher, now." Rain, with her mastery of tech and engineering, was already engaging her rig, a pulsing contraption buzzing with energy that always drew from the very core of ambition. As she climbed to the improvised tower beside Malik, Asher supported her, ready to provide cover should they need it. "Ready on your mark," she called, wires straining as the hum of energy surged beneath her fingertips. The colossal drones surged forward with a metallic roar, the very ground trembling beneath their might. The air thickened, saturated with the scent of acrid smoke and displaced oil, a reminder that this fight encompassed everything we had lost. "But now," I shouted, the charge of urgency coursing through me like an electric current, shouting as I flung my fist forward into the air. In sync, Rain triggered the power she had amassed, launching a surge of energy toward the encroaching Syndicate forces. Brilliant sparks erupted as the pulse of her invention flew forth, illuminating the twilight with hues of blue and green, an ethereal burst that erupted like fireworks, dancing through the night sky. "Push," Malik yelled, the command rallying our forces. I swung my gaze to the enforcers as the distraction held. They staggered, shields flickering as their systems struggled to recalibrate. Forward, now. With a primal roar, we surged ahead, breaking through their defenses like a bolt of lightning splitting the sky. The barricades held sturdy, courage swelled in us like a refreshing tide washing against the remnants of despair that clung too closely. Swords of sparking energy and fervor surged through the air, with every collision of metal against metal ringing hope for our cause. The Syndicate's upper echelons were beginning to waver under the might of our collective spirit fear had turned against them. "Regroup," I shouted, leaping across the debris in determination as the battle raged on. In the chaos, I spotted a cluster of enforcers retreating, their shield network collapsing as a wave of us pressed forward. "We can't let up." I turned and faced Malik, the gravity of our task igniting every sense I had. "Hold the line and push your warriors into the fray. If we can crush them here, we can carve a path toward victory." Just beyond the front lines, I saw General Ira pacing like a prowling predator, calculating, assessing. She wouldn't relent, I knew that, but neither would we. Her heavy set of armored guards began to fan towards us, their shields glinting in the fading light like fragments of a dying sun. Jin. Asher's readying something. Malik's voice carried over the tumult, urgency vibrating in every word. "We need to pull as close as we can." Almost instinctively, I dove toward the crowd, past several figures caught up in the exhilaration of conflict. Just as Ira's forces began to close in, I locked eyes with Malik, feeling our connection strengthen. He was my anchor as we recentered around our purpose, the thread of determination weaving our spirits together. All or nothing, I declared, charging toward the emerging gap in their ranks as the pulse of energy began to coalesce in the haze. This is where change takes root. Just then, with a booming crack, the remnants of Rain's charge pierced through the barrier, igniting an explosion that lit the ground around us, scattering debris and scattering the enforcers like broken glass. No, stay together, General Ira yelled, furious energy slicing through the flames. The cloud of smoke enveloped us as we pushed forth, buoyed by the unity that carried us toward the heart of the Syndicate's oncoming storm. I could feel the resolve swelling. We would push against the very gate of their tyranny. Asterisk flashes of colors erupted endlessly: crimson, azure, the radiant yellows, mingling beneath the brilliance of our determined uprising. Asterisk, I wove toward the gap in their defenses, allowing the warmth of hope to remind me why we stood united. Keep fighting. We are the pulse of this city. With every step I took, every confrontation, I focused on the whispers of lost souls, their spirits woven into my very essence, urging me onward. We were alive in a structure of resolve, rebelling against the oppressive darkness suffocating our futures. As we pushed forward, moment by moment, the determined shouts of our allies melded together until all that remained was the symphony of our rebellion, drowning out the echoes of despair and empowering us to claim a brighter future. In that moment, I became aware that this battle was more than a clash of machines. It was a legacy forged in the fires of rebellion, an ascent from shadows into the luminosity of hope, and I would see it through to the end. But just as I rounded to face General Ira, a forceful voice tore into the air. You think you can claim victory? To my shock, the ground beneath me quaked once more, the sound of rumbling treading heavier as reinforcements began to cascade onto the battlefield, silhouettes illuminated against the twilight, dread billowing at the edges of our momentum. Prepare for the final assault, Ira commanded, her words slicing deeper than any blade. I felt my heart plummet, energy threatening to drain from my resolve. Their relentless nature was not merely tenacious, but designed to suffocate everything we had fought for. As they spread outward, powerful and unyielding, I knew we were running out of time. The syndicates had shaped their ghosts with cunning motives. They had longevity on their side, but now I understood our moment was eclipsing, and the fight that awaited would demand something far deeper than mere bodies in the fray. Keep pressing forward together, I shouted, rallying our group, the fires of defiance pooling in our gut as the battle ambience stirred my spirit anew. This was not merely a moment in a fight. It was the genesis of liberation. Across the tumult, I saw them looming, encumbers of darkness that seemed intent on unraveling our resolve. I was face with the shadows of authority, and at this precipice, I could feel every emotion colliding within me: fear, anguish, hope, but more than everything, strength. Fight. I cried us onward against the syndicates, against everything that had pulled us down for too long. Today, we reclaim our destiny, do not break. With the roars of the crowd swelling around me, I surged forward once again, bodies coalescing, shields raised, hands stretching high as we barreled into the final confrontation. This was the moment of truth. We were the vanguard against a future where silence had reigned for decades. We could tip the scales. Together, we could rise into the dawn of rebirth. As we surged into the ever-present darkness, the fight continued, but this time we would take the fight to them. The syndicates would witness not merely the heat of uprising, but the pulse of human spirit rising, defiant and resolute as we sought to lay waste to the chains that had held us captive for far too long. And I knew in that very heartbeat that this time the tides were turning, and we would break the spell of oppression once and for all. The cacophony of battle raged around me, a tumultuous roar that echoed through the air as we pushed forward against the syndicate's forces. I could feel the strength of my allies rallying behind me, each individual embodying courage and determination that pulsed through the fabric of our resistance. The world was a chaotic blend of fire, smoke, and the relentless drive of humanity clawing its way toward freedom. Jin, to the left, Malik shouted amidst the clamor, snapping me back into focus. I sprinted alongside him, my heart pounding in time with the rhythmic chaos, pushing adrenaline through my veins and igniting a fire of purpose within me once more. The Syndicate enforcers were regrouping, their tightly knit formations readying for another onslaught, but we had broken their momentum. Now was our moment. "Don't hold back," I yelled, raising my fist against the impending tide of mechanized shadows closing in around us. "This is for every life claimed by their tyranny, for Theo, for all who dared to dream of a world without chains." "Forward," Malik bellowed, and the crowd surged as one. With a roar that resonated through the battlefield, we broke through the Syndicate's line, a wave of humanity ready to reclaim our destiny. I could feel the weight of expectation bearing down upon us. This was not merely a skirmish, but the culmination of every sacrifice made, every soul lost. We were no longer shadowed reminders of fear. We were harbingers of hope ready to rise. As we approached the mechanics of their battlefront, I could see General Ira overseeing the chaos unfolding at her feet. Her sharp gaze swept across the battlefield, cold and calculating, as if she were assessing each move like a grandmaster orchestrating a chess match. But I was done being a pawn in her game. This time, I moved as the queen. "Reign now," I shouted, trusting her instincts as she unleashed another round of energy from her device, sending colorful ribbons of electricity rippling across the battlefield. Sparks cascaded outward, catching on the armor of the Syndicate drones that flanked Ira, causing them to stutter and stumble. "Remember, aim for the weak points," Asher urged, his voice a clarion call for focus. "They have vulnerabilities we can exploit. Strike while we can." With renewed resolve, I maneuvered through the chaos, feeling the pulse of energy coursing through my body. The crowd around me surged forward like a sea of unstoppable determination, and as we engaged the enemy forces, the barricades of steel and hatred began to tremble. "Do you feel that?" I hollered toward the crowd over the din. "Believe that we can break through together. We're a tidal wave of change." The enforcers recoiled slightly, a flicker of uncertainty evident on their armored fronts, and I seized the moment, charging toward their lines. With each shout, each advance, a name filled my heart. Theo. A name that had been both a beacon of light and a shadow of loss. "Jin," Malik shouted, pulling me back as I neared the Syndicate lines. "Watch out." I spun just in time to narrowly avoid a volley of shots aimed at us, the impact sending shockwaves rippling through the air. General Ira stood at the forefront, her steely expression unwavering as she directed her forces to push back against us. "Regroup," I ordered, rallying the troops further, but amidst the chaos, a realization struck me. Ira was not merely guarding her own. She was calculating where the final blow would land, assessing our collective spirit, ready to strike where we would falter the most. It was then that I spotted a glimmer of twisted metal just behind her, a central command console pulsing with energy, thrumming with the very lifeblood of the Syndicate's operations. If we could take it out, we could fracture their lines and dismantle their grip on the city. "I'm going to take out the command center," I shouted, resolute in my purpose. "Cover me." Malik's expression was a mixture of pride and concern. "You'll need backup. There's no time. Let me lead the charge," I replied, feeling the weight of my decision settle across my shoulders. To win, we have to force their hand. If I can reach it, if I can strike at the heart of their operation, we stand a chance to dismantle their control. "Together," he said, and with a nod, we rallied our forces behind me, forming a barrier of courage as we advanced. "Let's do this, Jin." With a deafening roar, we surged forward, charging toward the command center. I could hear the cries of my allies, the thundering of feet pounding against the chaotic symphony echoing around us. Each step tore at the edges of my physical limits, but I couldn't relent. I wouldn't relent. We were more than the shadows they wished us to be. As we neared the command center, the remnants of the Syndicate forces attempted to close in around us, shields raised furiously. "You push through," I shouted, throwing myself against the mass. For every name, every life that yearned for freedom. A tense standoff erupted, the clash of metal on metal ringing like a war drum echoing through the abyss. I reached the barrier and climbed atop it, gaining a vantage point, heart racing as I scanned the area. Malik, Rain, take out their left flank. I commanded with urgency, feeling time slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. Distract them. I need a clear path. Malik and Rain exchanged determined looks before springing into action, moving fluidly amid the scattered chaos. Rain unleashed another wave of energy that erupted into a halo of light, cracking like thunder against the horizon, striking the Syndicate forces and creating a ripple in their ranks that caused them to shift. "Now," I yelled, spotting the opportunity as I launched forward, navigating through the flames and smoke, every ounce of exertion burning through me. With every hurdle I crossed, I could hear the weight of my allies, their voices propelling me onward. I weaved in and out of debris, spiraling around the last line of enforcers blocking the path to the command center. My heart thudded violently against my ribs, yet I felt the warmth of hope striking against despair, holding fast. The concise movements of my body propelled me forward, reaching the base of the command center. A metallic structure pulsating with energy. I could feel the hum beneath my fingers resonating with urgency, fueling my drive deeper into the heart of the Syndicates. "Jin, we're right behind you," Malik shouted, panting as he and Rain caught up with me. A protective barrier surrounding us as the enforcers began to regroup in an attempt to fend us off. "Cover me," I spat, my breath catching within my throat as I zeroed in on the central control panel outlined in electric hues. I could see a blinking laser, the emergency control system, demanding I take action. I leaped down in one swift motion, drawing nearer to the central console. As I reached for my weapon, I heard the enforcers closing in, their imposing forces threatening to shut us down once and for all. "This ends here," I cried, thrusting my weapon into the console's access panel, sending sparks flying everywhere. The machinery sparked wildly, releasing an orchestra of angry tones that vibrated against the air. "Take it out," Malik commanded. "Now." I focused every ounce of energy into the interface, wrestling against the rising weight of the Syndicate's power. I hacked into their central operations as desperation fueled me. This was our lifeline, our chance for freedom. The command code flickered before my eyes, but then a sudden surge of pain radiated through my side, pulling at the edges of my focus. I gritted my teeth and fought against the crippling sensation, drawing strength from the righteous fire of rebellion swirling around me. With one final push, I entered the final digits of the override code, my heart pounding through every pulse of energy coursing through my veins. The machinery roared violently, a burst of light erupting from the console as it began to overload, sending sparks flying into the air, illuminating the darkness shrouding our fight. "Now, move," I bellowed, feeling the command center start to tremble beneath me. "Get everyone out." Panic seeped into the air as the enforcers hesitated, confused by the sudden turn of events. They didn't know the end was upon them. A seismic blast reverberated through the air, the force of our rebellion meeting the heart of their operations head on. "Everyone, retreat," Malik screamed, instinctively taking my hand. As Rain delivered covering fire to push the Syndicates back, we ran, focusing on surviving amidst the impending chaos. Behind us, the command center erupted, a brilliant burst of light and flame illuminating the night as the infrastructure began to collapse around us. "Their system is down. We did it," I shouted, feeling the elation coursing through my veins as we ripped through the barricades. "This is our mark." The Syndicate enforcers, stranded without direction, faltered beneath the weight of uncertainty. Their ranks staggered as we fled the destruction, victorious and defiant. The battlefield erupted in chaos as our rallying cries erupted around us. "Raise your voices," I chanted, grasping Malik's hand as Ira's forces began to crumble, retreating back, losing their once formidable hold on the city. This is our moment. We will rise, we will be heard. We reach the outskirts of the battlefield, the one sun. Yielding atmosphere now transformed into a vibrant scene of reality blending with the power of our triumph. Determination thickened the air, swelling into an unstoppable force as humanity clung to its purpose. As we witnessed the waves of enforcers stagger away, defeat etched into their stark expressions, I felt the warmth of hope rising like a phoenix from the ashes. "We have changed the tide," I whispered, lifting my gaze skyward, feeling the warmth of dawn settling in the distance. Malik squeezed my hand. Together, we pushed back against the darkness. This was always our fight. "We found strength in unity," I replied, pride bubbling through me as I turned back to the masses gathering behind us. People who fought with purpose, with resolve. This is our legacy, a testament of hope carried on each of us. The sun broke over the horizon, illuminating the remnants of smoke and fire that once filled the air. Shadows melted away in the daylight, giving rise to a new dawn that carried with it the promise of change. We had fought for so long, and while the journey ahead would remain fraught with challenges, I knew this moment marked a tipping point into the unknown, a starting point toward a brighter tomorrow. With courage igniting our spirits, we turned back to face the horizon together. An unbreakable force rising from the ashes of our past, ready to forge a future built on unity, hope, and resilience. The syndicates had tried to silence us, but we had awakened something far greater. A collective desire to be free, and thus it began. The world had changed, but we were only just getting started. Asterisk, the fight for our future was now our birthright. Asterisk, with fierce determination, we would reclaim what had so long been denied. And as dawn broke before us, I felt the true weight of our rebellion crest upon the edge of a new era. Together, we began our march into the future.